Hi guys, and welcome to today's Money Honeys discussion. As always, if this is the first one of my Money Honeys videos you are watching, I would suggest that you go back to the start of the series and watch from there. It will make a whole lot more sense if you start from the beginning and work your way through. And if you have been following along and are watching this one in succession, then thank you so much for joining me. Today we're going to be talking about still achievement 4, which is paying off your debt. Paying off your consumer debt. And it's going to be a little bit of a different video because I have a collection of 7 tips and things to keep in mind that will help you in paying off debt. And it's kind of a collection of very practical things and also mental things to help you out. With all that being said, let's get started on our 7 tips. So tip 1 is to ask for your interest rates to be lowered. This is specifically around credit cards, but you can try with your bank if you have other kinds of loans. Oftentimes, if you have a credit card that is, say, 20%, 25%, 19.99%, something like that, you can call and ask them if they can lower your interest rate. Let them know that you're trying to pay off the debt, that you might be having a bit of trouble with it, and can they help you by lowering the interest rate? It doesn't hurt to ask. Sometimes they will do it, especially if you notice that there are other credit cards that they have that are of a lower interest rate. There are some things you can do around balance transfers. Sometimes there are fees associated with that. So before you do any kind of balance transfers to lower interest rates cards, you're really going to want to understand the full cost of doing that. But you can just call and ask for the interest rate to be lowered on the card that you have. It's not going to make a huge difference, but every little bit of interest that you save is money that you can put towards paying off the principal of the debt. I will say you can do this with credit cards that you are current on. As I mentioned in a couple of videos ago, if you have debts that are in collection and they are not currently bothering you about them, if you're kind of off of their radar for now, don't call them and bring attention to yourself. You just don't want to reactivate any messes that might be sort of dormant for now until you get to a point that you're ready to pay those off. But for any active credit cards that you have or loans that you have, lines of credits that you have, it's always worth the conversation about whether you can have a lower interest rate. Tip number 2 is to get rid of your credit cards. If you are paying off your credit cards, you do not want to be putting money onto them on one side and then building money back up and paying for things with them on the other side. It's not going to get you there. So I am not one of the people who is totally anti-credit card, so I have 2 options here. If you decide you really have a problem with credit cards and you want to stop using them, cut them up. Cut them up and get rid of them. And delete them off of your computer if you have saved your credit card information in there, because it is way too easy to hit autofill and put your credit card information in and pay for things that way. So if you want them out of your life, if you are determined to not use credit cards, you just want to use cash and debit, cut them up. If you want to sort of have them on hand, if you don't necessarily think you want credit cards completely out of your life, but you want them to be inaccessible except in when you really have to use them for something that you've planned for, or you want to be able to use them again once you have paid off all of your debt, put them on ice. Put them in a container, fill that container with water, and put it in your freezer. When you need to use a credit card, you will have to let that ice thaw out, which will give you time to decide if what you want is really something you want, or if it is just an impulse purchase. Because you cannot put it in the microwave because it will ruin the credit card if you do that. You are going to have to wait for the ice to melt. Tip 3 is that cut back as much as you can in your budget. Interest rate makes a little bit of a difference, but what really makes a difference is how much money each month you can put towards paying debt. But the tip here is actually cut back as much as you can, but give yourself a little bit of something for fun. 20 bucks, enough to maybe buy some food and go on a picnic, maybe to go for 2 people for cheap movie night. If you give yourself nothing, you're going to feel really deprived. If you put a little bit of money into having fun each month, it'll help you stay on track and not feel so deprived that you just go off the deep end and spend all kinds of money. Tip 4 is to make sure that the payments you are making is going towards principal. This is mostly around student loans. There are times when you pay more that instead of reducing the principal on the loan, they put it towards a future payment, which means that you are still paying interest. It's almost like they're just making an extra payment at a future date. I don't think I'm really explaining this right. It's almost as if, say my minimum payment every time was $20 and $5 of that was going towards principal and $15 of that was going towards interest. If you give them an additional $20, you want that $20 to go completely towards principal. What they will do sometimes is take that $20 and go, oh, we're going to put that towards a prepaid payment, which means that you will just have one fewer payment in the future, or you can skip a payment later on, but they are still putting $15 of that towards interest and $5 towards principal. You don't want that. You want the entire amount that you give to go towards principal. So look at your statement, call them, make sure what you are doing is actually going towards paying off principal. Tip number 5 is not to keep your debt a secret. A lot of people find debt something that feels shameful, something that you want to keep to yourself, not let people know that perhaps you've overspent, that you have some credit card debt, something like that. I will say you don't need to go into all like the dirty details about how much you owe and who you owe it to and what you spent it on and everything else, unless you really feel like sharing that kind of thing. But if your friends know that you are working on paying off debt, it's going to become that much easier to say, guys, I can't go out to an expensive restaurant. I'm really focusing on paying off the debt that I have right now. Like, I will come with you on a fun shopping trip, but I'm not going to buy anything. I'm really focused on paying off the debt that I have right now. And if you make that something that is just out there, it's going to be a lot easier for you to do than just saying like, oh, sorry, I can't go to dinner tonight, or like, oh, I don't really want to come along on that trip. Tell them you are paying off debt. And that is why you are not spending on certain things. They're your friends. They'll want what's best for you. Tip number 6 is to consider using any non-retirement savings you have towards your debt. So we talked about putting together a emergency fund of 1 month of your expenses, and we have started putting a small percentage of savings each month into retirement savings. But outside of that, if you have other money that is sitting in a savings account, I understand everybody has a different level of interest and this can sound scary, but if you have $15,000 worth of debt that perhaps you are paying 6 or 7 or 10% interest on, and you have $10,000 worth of savings beyond your 1 month of expenses sitting in a savings account earning 1 or 2% interest, it really makes sense to take that $10,000, apply it towards the 15, bring that amount down to 5 and keep paying that. Then later on, when you're not having this debt that's sucking all your resources into it, you can really start saving at an accelerated rate and repay that money back again into your savings account. But for now, logically, it makes more sense to use money that's sitting in savings, not in a retirement account. Don't pull anything out of RRSPs or IRAs or RRSPs, anything like that. But if it's purely a savings account sitting there making probably very little interest right now, it would probably make more sense for you to use it to pay off some debt that you have. And our final tip, tip number 7, is to keep your vision in mind. If you have gone through this whole process, then you'll know closer to the start, we spent some time thinking about what we wanted our life to be like, what we wanted it to look like in terms of how we spent our time, where we lived, what we wanted to do, how we wanted to perhaps go to school or plan a family or go on vacations. When things seem like they're getting hard, when it seems like all my money is going towards stuff that isn't any fun because you're working on paying off debt, keep bringing yourself back to that vision, because I am sure that that vision did not include having to pay money towards debt every month. And you are going to be able to reach that vision if you keep working on the hard work now that will make your vision able to happen later. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Those are my 7 tips, and we are going to keep continuing on together. I will keep giving you more ideas of motivation and how to keep yourself excited about getting through this phase of the process. If you are enjoying the Money Honey series so far, please consider giving me a like. It would really help, and I love to get feedback. If you have any comments to leave down below, you can. I respond to every comment. If you have a question that's a bit more personal, I have an email address down below. Feel free to reach out to me. And if you have not subscribed, you will subscribe and get to see my videos coming up in your subscription feed. I do a number of product review videos and then try to get these videos out every Sunday for Money Honeys, and you can click on my face at the end of the video to subscribe. Thanks so much and have a wonderful day. Bye.